If you visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/thecyberwire, you'll see that at the $10 per month level, you get access to an ad-free version of our show. It's the same show, just without the ads. Check it out. Patreon.com/thecyberwire. More nation-states acquire and use cyber capabilities. North Korea's SiliVaccine antivirus product appears to have pirated an old version of Trend Micro's scan engine. Despite warnings of credential stuffing, people still reuse passwords. GravityRAT now takes its victims' temperature. Many firms remain unprepared for GDPR. Questions arise about possible over-preparation by two of the biggest companies out there. And some dimwit has hacked a highway sign in Arizona. Congratulations, knucklehead. And now, a few words about our sponsor, Dragos, the leaders in industrial control system and operational technology security. In their latest white paper, Dragos and OSIsoft present a modern-day challenge of defending industrial environments and share valuable insights on how the Dragos OSIsoft technology integration helps asset owners respond effectively and efficiently. They'll take you step by step through an investigation, solving the mystery of an inside job using digital forensics with the Dragos platform and the OSIsoft Pi system. Download your copy today at thecyberwire.com/Dragos. That's thecyberwire.com/Dragos, Dragos. And we thank Dragos for sponsoring our show. Major funding for the CyberWire podcast is provided by Cylance. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018. It's unsurprising, but worth noting, FireEye says more states are acquiring effective cyber capabilities and using them for espionage and other disruptive operations. Vietnam, in particular, is mentioned in dispatches. North Korea has had its own homegrown antivirus product, SiliVaccine, for some time. Upon inspection, it seems less homegrown than thought. Researchers at Checkpoint obtained a sample sent to a journalist as apparent fishbait. They concluded that SiliVaccine is built around a decade-old version of Trend Micro's scan engine, modified to ignore certain virus signatures, effectively whitelisting some DPRK attack tools. The sample was also bundled with malware from North Korean threat actor Jakku. The pirated AV product is associated with two concerns: Pyongyang Gwangmyong Information Technology and STS Tech Service. Trend Micro points out, correctly, that the pirated code in no way affects their current product's security or reliability. The producers of SiliVaccine are thought to have obtained the old Trend Micro code from some third party. Why, one might ask, would one decide using a North Korean antivirus product was a good bargain? For one thing, if one were among the relatively small number of North Korean internet users, one might have little choice. It's unlikely that the glorious self-reliant software kiosk at the ever-victorious mall carries ESET or Bitdefender or Cylance or Trend Micro or Webroot or Kaspersky. If you're not one of the DPRK's residents, you might not realize it was a DPRK-associated product. STS Tech Service, for example, is an organization of unclear provenance. It's not to be confused, by the way, with STS Technical Services, an honest Wisconsin business that Glassdoor says is a pretty good place to work. Or you might be incautious enough to accept an emailed offer of free antivirus. A lot of reputable companies offer free versions of their products to individuals as loss leaders. Who's to say this one isn't okay? And finally, believe it or not, we've actually seen descriptions by apparently serious and not obviously insane people who've made the case online that North Korea might be a pretty good offshore option if you're looking for affordable coders, to which we can only say, just say no. Widespread concern about credential stuffing attacks has brought the problem of password reuse to the fore, but reuse continues unabated, according to a LastPass study. People reuse passwords because they're afraid they'll forget them. LastPass, of course, is in the business of selling password managers, so their results align with their business, But their point is a good one and well taken. The finding that personal passwords often get reused on business sites is particularly troubling. We're not sure this is much better than writing them down on a sticky note under your keyboard. In that case, at least, you know that your big threat is an evil-made attack. For the record, we don't recommend using sticky notes as password managers, but we do know it goes on. Piero&nbsp works with ServiceNow's security group. They recently teamed up with the Ponemon Institute for a global cybersecurity study, surveying over 3,000 people around the world. Piero&nbsp joins us to share the results.
Publicized data breaches are actually just the tip of the iceberg. The beauty of getting to so many people in 9 different countries around the world is we're able to really get a wide view of the market. And what we found was that 48% of organizations who responded to our survey had a data breach in the past 2 years. So just the things we're hearing about in the news is really just the tip of the iceberg.
So one of the things that this report focuses on is patching, and specifically the challenges when it comes to patching. Can you take us through some of the information you gathered there?
Yeah, and really we came up with really 3 big themes around patching. The first is that the teams are overwhelmed. They're getting hit with so much data from so many different security tools. And what we found is that 64% of the organizations who said that they were looking at hiring more people to go and solve the problem. And on average, those organizations are spending about 320 hours a week on vulnerability patching. And they're looking to hire to get another 50% more capacity in that area. So if 320 hours a week is essentially 8 full-time people, looking at adding another 4. The second was that a lot of the things they found around those processes were they were using a lot of manual process to do this work. And so while they're looking at adding more people, they may be adding them to processes that are very manual in nature. And so this may not actually help the problem, which is why we kind of call this the patching paradox. Adding more people may not actually help. And then the third is because of the big swath of people we were able to get to, we're able to cut that data by the organizations who were breached and organizations that were not. What we found is that of the organizations that were not breached, they rated themselves as being 41% better at patching vulnerabilities than the folks who were breached. And so we found that really being good at patching is one of the things that can really help reduce an organization's breach.
And what did you discover in terms of feedback on why patching continues to be such a challenge for organizations?
A few different things. As they're looking for more people, they're struggling to hire. There's a great study from ISACA that shows that there'll be a 2 million people global shortage of cybersecurity professionals by 2019. When we got into the data and understand a little bit on why it's so hard, in many cases, a security person is finding the vulnerabilities, and it's somebody on the IT side in a parallel group that's actually doing the work for patching. And 73% of the respondents said that the security and IT teams don't have a common view of all applications and systems, and that 57% of them said that things were slipping through the cracks because they're using things like emails and spreadsheets to manage this whole process versus having a more robust system for doing so.
So in terms of take-homes and recommendations, what are you suggesting people do?
First is that take an unbiased inventory of vulnerability response capabilities and look for some areas. We've got this great survey that kind of goes into a bunch of data. Look for places that hit home. And from there, you can move to number 2, which is start to tackle some of the low-hanging fruit, like being a little bit better at vulnerability scanning and prioritization. The third is I mentioned that 73% of folks were not seeing a common view of applications and systems between security and IT. We want to break down those silos, make sure that those teams are able to actually access the same data, and that will solve a lot of problems. The fourth was optimize the overall response process, document this thing end to end, and then look for places within that process to potentially automate. And then the fifth is that really by doing a lot of this stuff, you can, if you're able to put things into a more easy to use process for employees, this may actually help retain the talent that organizations already have, and it can create a bit of a high performance culture within a security team. And just given there's such a dearth of security talent, this will help not only maybe recruit new people to the organization, but maybe help retain folks because jobs elsewhere just won't look as exciting.
That's Piero DePaoli. He's from ServiceNow. You can check out the results of their survey on their website. The GravityRAT Trojan, which has troubled India for months, has, according to Cisco's Talos Research Group, become more evasive, using CPU temperature changes to detect virtual machines used for sandboxing. Its origins are unknown, but some think signs point to Pakistan. CERT India says that GravityRAT has been used to stage targeted attacks. GDPR takes effect at the end of the month, and a CompTIA survey suggests that more than half of U.S. businesses are unprepared for the new European privacy and data protection law. Two companies that appear better prepared than most are Google and Facebook, but their preparations aren't much to the liking of either European regulators or the publishing industry. The regulators see the two big advertising and data collection giants as seeking ways of evading at least the spirit, if not the letter, of GDPR, especially with respect to Facebook's new approach to privacy. And publishing concerns like Condé Nast, Bloomberg, Hearst, and The Guardian complain that Google is effectively trying to offload its responsibility for obtaining consent to use personal data onto the publishers, while Google itself refuses transparency in its own use of data obtained through the publishers' use of Google services. This, the publishers complain, increases both their burden and their liability. And we'll finish with the pointless crime news of the day. Some loser in Arizona hacked a highway sign to display the words, "Hail Hitler." We assume he meant Heil. And we'll leave it as an exercise to speculate about why people do such things. Talk amongst yourselves. Keep your eyes on the road, because distracted driving is always dangerous. I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Blue Vector. Visit them at bluevector.io. Have you noticed the use of fileless malware is on the rise? The reason for this is simple. Most organizations aren't prepared to detect it. Last year, Blue Vector introduced the security market's first analytics specifically designed for fileless malware detection on the network. Selected as a finalist for RSA's 2018 Innovation Sandbox Contest, Blue Vector Cortex is an AI-driven sense and response network security platform that makes it possible to accurately and efficiently detect, analyze, and contain sophisticated threats. If you're concerned about advanced threats like fileless malware or just want to learn more, visit bluevector.io. That's BLUVECTOR.io. And we thank Blue Vector for sponsoring our show. And joining me once again is Justin Harvey. He's the Global Incident Response Leader at Accenture. Justin, welcome back. You all have been seeing an uptick in credential harvesting activity. What can you share about that?
Dave, we work these complicated cases that involve thousands of machines. It's fascinating that some of the most simple attacks are still being perpetrated in the world. And the one that we're seeing the most of is called credential harvesting. And the way it works is an adversary profiles an individual within a company. And sometimes this individual is the CFO. It's someone that perhaps does accounts payable. And I might add, it's very easy to identify these people in organizations with tools like LinkedIn. You go in, you type in the company name, AP, accounts payable, CFO, boom, there they are. And then there's a little bit of open source intelligence to find their email address. You find their email address and you send them a carefully crafted email that they are going to want to click on. Sometimes it is an association. Sometimes it looks like it's from the personal email address of something they know. And it says, click here for a document or click here to find something out. So it tricks them into clicking that link, a link that looks very valid, and it brings up a login page. Now, if you're doing it to a Gmail user, you'll make it look like a Gmail login. If you're doing it to a corporate user, if you do a little bit of investigation, you can find out probably they have an Office 365 Exchange, in which case you would make the login page look like the Microsoft Office 365 login page tailored right for that company. And many times the adversary will be able to figure out what that looks like because they'll type owa.companyname.com or they'll type email.companyname.com. And usually what will happen is there's your Outlook web access page.
Right.
And it tricks people into going to this page, and they usually they change one or two letters. If it's an L, they put a 1. If it's an I, they'll put an L, things like that. When the user goes to there, they will type in their valid credentials because they think that there's been a problem with the system and they need to re-authenticate, and then there's a blank page after that. By that time, the cyber criminal has collected their username and password, maybe even takes that fake website down, and then they can log in as that user. The next stage of the attack is usually a little bit more custom. We're seeing various abuses of their username and password. Sometimes it is stealing all of their email for blackmail. Sometimes it is rerouting all of their emails to somewhere else. Sometimes it's even masquerading as that person and sending an instruction, like the CFO instructing someone from accounts payable to pay a bill to this account number, or even looking for new invoices that are coming in, getting the invoice, changing the account routing number to a foreign bank, and submitting it via email to accounts payable. You might then think, well, doesn't the other person receiving that email know that the submitter is being impersonated? And oftentimes, they don't know. In these larger companies, you might be in a completely different country than the submitter, but the request still looks legitimate. And to cover their tracks even further, an adversary will actually set up complicated or complex Outlook rules. If the accounts payable person does have a question, it gets routed to a hidden folder, which then the adversary can say, no, this is real, please submit for sure ASAP, and defraud these companies of funds.
So it strikes me that the bad guys do this because it works. What are your recommendations for people to protect themselves from this?
I believe most of the entrance of cybercrime into threats, it really revolves around the people. The stock answers I always give are better user awareness, better training of the users, better simulations. I just love those companies out there that are doing phishing simulations, and they're almost gamifying it. How many months can you go without clicking on a phishing attack? So that's number one. It always starts with user education and awareness. The second thing would be two-factor authentication, Dave. I can't stress this enough. I am still encountering large-scale institutions that do not have two-factor enabled, and it is so critical, at least for your email, at least for your VPN, at least for your virtual desktop, that you enable two-factor. Now, I know that two-factor may not be the easiest thing to implement, meaning that there are dependencies and there's software you need to do and there's rollouts. But if I were a listener out there today and hearing this, and I didn't have two-factor and I had responsibility for this, that would be the next thing I would do. Pick up the phone and get a two-factor solution for your critical services to begin with, and then try to proliferate it as necessary.
Good advice as always. Justin Harvey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And that's the Cyberwire. Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the Cyberwire possible, especially to our sustaining sponsor, Cylance. To find out how Cylance can help protect you through the use of artificial intelligence, visit Cylance.com. And thanks to our supporting sponsor, VMware, creators of Workspace ONE Intelligence. Learn more at vmware.com. The Cyberwire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technology. Our show is produced by Pratt Street Media with editor John Petrick, social media editor Jennifer Iben, technical editor Chris Russell, executive editor Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.